Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the NWR Virtual Healthcare Day for November 2021. Up next this afternoon, we have BCAL Diagnostics, listed on the ASX as BDX. BCAL is an Australian screening and diagnostic company committed to the early, accurate diagnosis of breast cancer. Over the past decade, BCAL has developed a non-invasive blood test for the detection of breast cancer, with results to date demonstrating 91% specificity and 87% accuracy. The test is initially designed to complement current imaging technologies, such as the mammogram, with the aim of becoming a monitoring and screening tool suitable for women of all ages and backgrounds in any location. Jayne Shaw, the Executive Chair, is joining me today. Just before I throw to Jayne, if anyone in the audience would like to submit a question to ask Jayne for the Q&A session at the end of the presentation, then please do type it in using the Q&A panel on your screen. Feel free to put those questions in at any time. Jayne, I will now throw it over to you.
Thank you, Finn, and thank you everybody for your time today. So BCAL Diagnostics, who are we and what are we doing? We're basically developing and commercializing a blood test for the diagnosis and screening of breast cancer. So why invest in BCAL? Basically, we've got strong scientific data. We've got research that has come initially from Australia, then went to the USA, and then we brought it back to Australia in 2017. We've completed our science on a large number of samples, which I'll go through in detail shortly. We've got a clear pathway to market, both within Australia, Europe, and the US. We've got significant partnerships with clinicians and strategic partnerships commercially with Genesis Healthcare. And we've got an experienced board and management team who've got experience on execution and taking these tests to market. So why is there a need? Unfortunately, breast cancer is going to affect at least 1 in 7 women in Australia, about 3,000 deaths a year annually, and about 627,000 deaths globally. Breast cancer will affect about 58% of deaths will come from the developing economies. This is a developing world issue and disease. Early diagnosis is critical. The earlier we detect the breast cancer, the earlier an improvement of survivability rates. So in stage 0, it's about 100% survival rate, stage 1, 98%, and 93% for stage 2. Obviously, depending upon what stage you are diagnosed, depends on the type of treatment that you have, whether it's radiation, chemotherapy, or radical mastectomy. So early diagnosis is critical. Currently, the gold standard screening tool for breast cancer for women from 40 to 75 is still the mammogram. Breast screening started in Australia in about 1993, and the science and technology from 1993 hasn't changed to date. A mammogram simply is a woman goes in and has her breasts compressed on a metal plate. It's quite painful, uncomfortable, and a lot of people actually self-select. About 50% of the potential market self-select not to have a mammogram. So there's a huge demand for a new diagnostic tool for breast cancer screening. There's also limitations from breast density. That's how fatty the actual tissue is. Religious and cultural reasons, a lot of women self-select not to go through the physical examination, and also accessibility through remote access. It's very hard to access mammography in some parts of the country. In terms of the market for early detection for breast cancer, 2019, it was estimated to be about 5 billion, growing to 8.7 billion. And they are on the diagnostic tools that are available to date, which include mammography, ultrasound, MRI. There are blood tests for breast cancer in terms of genomic screening, genomic testing, also looking at the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene mutation. In terms of the company and the developments, BCAL was formed in 2010, initially in Australia. We went to lodge our first patents and identified that the University of Louisville had already lodged those patents. So we entered an exclusive license agreement with them for breast and lung cancer. We then funded the research in the US and also the patent protection. We brought the science back to Australia at the end of 2017, where we could continue the scientific validation and also prepare the test for market. And currently we're at the stage now where we are undertaking clinical trials, fresh samples collected from local centres like Lifehouse, Sydney Breast Clinic and New South Wales Breast Screen. In terms of our rollout strategy and market entry points, we've got 4 clear paths to market. The first one is the blood test adjunct with mammography screening to run in parallel. The second market entry point is for monitoring. So women who have actually had breast cancer, there's a high incidence of breast cancer returning 5 years post their treatment or being given the all clear in inverted commas. And there's no ways currently for women to monitor whether that breast cancer returns. We're looking at predictive for market entry point 3. This is women who have got the BRCA1 or BRCA2 gene mutation and need peace of mind. Currently, many women select to have radical mastectomy as they're never sure whether their breast cancer is actually going to develop or not. And then market entry 4 is a comprehensive breast cancer screening blood test for all women everywhere. The reason we've got 4 market entry points is each market entry point will give us comprehensive scientific data and the technical files that we need to consolidate the market entry going forward. So in terms of what does our blood test look like and why is it unique? We look at blood samples. So we take the standard blood test and we look at exosomes and we look at those lipids in the plasma that come from the exosomes. We've identified an 18-panel candidate marker for biomarkers, and they can differentiate between breast cancer and non-breast cancer patients. How will the test work? You'll go to your general practitioner and they'll refer you for a standard pathology test. It'll go through our process in terms of the laboratory through a mass spec, and then we'll run it through our specific algorithm where we're using artificial intelligence and machine learning in terms of maximizing the accuracy and sensitivity of the test. Our clinical studies to date, now these studies from cohort 1 to cohort 4 are the studies from 2018 to 2021. There have been many other clinical studies occurring within the US, but we thought we'd report on the latest clinical results. So a cohort refers to a group of people who share the same characteristics. So these samples are all freshly collected under the significant quality criteria and protocols as outlined by our scientific team. So our scientific results have come from looking at 450 lipids in a whole in the plasma. Then we've broken those 450 lipids down into 18 lipids that have given us our algorithm and biomarker panel of 18 biomarkers. We've got new patents currently being reviewed and lodged at the moment as we're refining the test, developing the AI and the machine learning, and through the processes and methodology, our patent protection is getting stronger as we're lodging more provisionals at this time. In terms of the results, our latest results, and this was post our IPO and post listing, we were running cohort 4, which was an additional 301 samples. We've been able to repeatedly and consistently replicate the science, which is extremely important. We've had just under 90% in terms of sensitivity, at 85% in accuracy. So these are strong scientific evidence to take us to the next stage of product development. So what does our clinical study program look like? Currently, as I said earlier, we're recruiting patients. These are blood samples from patients currently in Sydney, New South Wales Breast Screen, Lifehouse, a Sydney Breast Clinic, and we're working with Genesis Care and hope to open some sites with them early next year. These fresh samples are very important because they're real-world samples coming out of breast cancer screening clinics. Today, we then take those samples, store them in the biobank, and then run them through our algorithm. So stage 1 is 1,000 samples, which we are collecting currently. Then we'll move to stage 2, which is an additional 2,000 samples. Currently, our priority is to lock in the algorithm, the 18. We are working with organizations both here and offshore who are biomarker experts in the lipidomic field, and we hope at some stage in the future to reduce the number of candidate lipid markers. So what are our near-term targets and milestones for the organisation, and what can investors hope to see over the next 3 to 6 months? As I said, finalise the biomarkers. We're in discussions currently with a range of NATA accredited laboratories within Australia, where we will be transitioning the laboratory from the Charles Perkins Centre, Sydney University, into a commercial laboratory. As we're doing that, as we're transferring the knowledge, we'll be preparing the test for an in-house IVD, working on the analytical performance, and also commencing the studies on cohort 5, which is the 1,000 samples that we're currently collecting. We'll then enter the pivotal trial about mid-2022, and we'd hope to launch a product to market, our first product to market as an adjunct test to mammography at some stage in 2023. Our pathway to market in Australia is in-house IVD in Australia, leading to TGA through all the technical files and developments. And the US, our market entry point is with a laboratory developed test within a clear lab model. Achievements to date, following from when we've listed, we've built a comprehensive scientific team. We've been able to recruit people from Imperial College in London, build out our management team and infrastructure. We're currently in the process of recruiting a chief executive officer, and we'd hope to finalise that appointment by the end of January. We've completed the analysis of cohort 4. We've updated our patent claims in the US, Canada, and Europe. And as I've indicated, we are looking at lodging further patents at this time. We're establishing our quality system in preparation for ISO certification. We've executed commercial agreements with Izon and Core Diagnostics. They will help us source additional samples out of India and other cohorts. We've started the 3 clinical trial sites, and we've commenced the recruitment. Our key partners, strategic partnerships, this is vital to getting the test to market. We're currently working with the Baker Institute, who are assisting us with our analytical validation stage, Genesis Healthcare, Thermo Scientific, and we continue to expand our partnerships both in Australia, the US, and the European markets. As outlined, our commercial pathway, as I've said, our clinical trials and clinical studies will be a continual. We'll continue to refine the test, the biomarkers, the algorithm. We'll continue to learn about the exosomes in the plasma. We're working towards regulatory. Everything we do within the scientific and the laboratory and the NASA accredited lab is all preparing the technical files that we need for regulatory approvals within Australia and also Europe. We're currently in discussions with potential LDT partners in the US, and we'll hope to make some further announcements on that early next year. And then, as I said, our plan to launch the adjunct test with a mammogram will be in 2023. We're only going to achieve our outcomes through a comprehensive team of scientists, management, and the board. We've got a very experienced board and leadership team. We've got a management team of people who have got experience in developing IVDs, commercializing them and taking them into the US and European markets. We've got a very strong scientific advisory board. We've got Kim Ekros. He's responsible or chairman of the Lipidomics Association in the US. Professor Peter Meikle from the Baker Institute. He's runs the lipidomics for Asia, Australia. So very strong expertise in terms of lipidomics. And we've got Associate Professor Craig Geddy in terms of oncology, cancer research, and also applying the science to the clinical real-world setting. Again, we're very fortunate to have a strong clinical advisory team. Sanjay Warrior, Associate Professor Cindy Mack, Professor Mary Rickard, she's our medical director. She's also on the Volpara board, and Mary Rickard introduced breast screening into Australia, Singapore, and also Italy. And behind all these individuals, we've got teams of other clinicians who are working with us to get the test to market. Their input is invaluable to what we're trying to achieve. So in summary, we've got strong scientific data. We've got a great team of people. We're very confident that we will get the test to market. We've got a defined pathway to market with a leadership team who've got a track record in execution and delivering on the milestones. We've got 11 years of learnings behind us. We've made mistakes in the past. Hopefully we've learned from them. And we believe we've got the strong, confident team who can execute on the research, regulatory, and commercialization pathway. And most importantly, we've got strong partnerships with clinicians and research organizations, both here and offshore, who can hopefully fast track us to get the test to market as soon as practical. So thank you for your time today.
Beautiful, Jayne. Thank you so much for that. We'll jump straight into Q&A. I've got a few questions here for you. Do you see this business and technology progressing in a similar fashion to Rhythm Biosciences?
Yeah, Rhythm have gone down a similar pathway. Yeah, they're developing their test in Australia, then they're taking it offshore. We're probably running our test in parallel, both here and in the US at the same time. So yeah, similar trajectory to Rhythm.
Can the timeline to market be fast-tracked at all? And is it a matter of time or resources?
No, it's about quality science. And so if we get our biomarkers reduced from 18 to a lower number, that will fast track us to market. And that's one of the initiatives that we're working on at the moment. We're working with a team out of Cambridge University and also the US who've got AI, machine learning, and molecular experience. So yes, it can be fast tracked, but I'd rather over deliver in terms of timeframes.
Perfect. Jayne, how has COVID impacted breast cancer and diagnostic space?
Yeah, COVID has had a big impact, as I'm sure some of you are aware. A lot of the screening centres, New South Wales Breast Screen was closed. It's only just reopened. It's actually opened this week, and also in Victoria as well. We haven't got the clinical outcomes, but in terms of the UK experience, because of COVID, the closure of screening clinics, it's led to a higher incidence of breast cancer detection for women in stages 3 and 4, so later diagnosis. So some of our surgeons we work with have actually started to see that now. Women haven't been checking their breasts, they haven't been having the routine examinations. So out of this call, if all females just go and have the mammogram or go and have the test, it's very important, but it has had an impact.
For sure. Jayne, one last one. What is the main reason you're confident in the BCAL business as we approach the new year?
Well, we've got very strong scientific data, and the reason the company is where it is today is that all the money has gone into the science and the data, and we've presented our scientific data to the clinicians last year, and they want to get this test into the market as soon as possible. So we're working with them in partnership in terms of the clinical utility of the test, the benefits to the patients, and where it will fit into the management and treatment of care.
Jayne Shaw from BCAL, thank you so much for your time today. Really excited to continue watching this story.
Thank you. Thanks.